So the agenda for today's session is we are going to start the discussion on AutoScale. Then laterly, as time permits, we can discuss the CloudWatch, the monitoring service. And in our next class, which is scheduled on Monday, Tuesday, let me discuss how to integrate AutoScaling and CloudWatch. And on our next class, you already know ELB, Elastic Load Balancing, how to integrate both the things, the CloudWatch and Elastic Load Balancing, and AutoScaling with Elastic Load Balancing. So this is the agenda for the next 3 classes. Now let me start with this concept of AutoScale. What is AutoScale? You know already what do you mean by scaling. Let me first start with the basic of what is scaling. So we have already discussed these things in our yesterday's session itself. Imagine you have a server with 1 microprocessor and 1 GB of RAM. Okay, so with this workload, it assumes that it can able to support 1,000 user requests per second. If the number of requests increases, then if it is 1,500, what you need to do? You want to go up adding additional 1 microprocessor and additional 1 GB of RAM. Here you can able to add these things in 2 ways. The process of adding the additional resources has been termed as scaling. Why you need to go for scaling? In order to ensure your efficiency. Whenever the load increases, your efficiency will be down if you work with these existing resources. In order to make highly efficient, and that should not be degradation with respect to efficiency, you need to go up adding the resources. The process of adding the resources has been termed as scaling. Here there are 2 types of scaling that you are aware of. One is vertical scaling and another one is horizontal scaling. In case of vertical scaling, what you did, so within this same server one, you can able to add the additional resources according to the workload. And what is the limitation here in case of vertical scaling? You can able to add additional processors, additional RAM memory up to the maximum number of slots that is possible in this physical server. You can't go beyond that. For example, if the server can able to accommodate only 3 RAM slots, you can't go beyond adding this 3 RAM, 1 GB, 1 GB RAM. If the server support only 4 microprocessor slots, you can't go and add additional microprocessor. That's a limitation in going for this vertical scaling. To overcome from this limitation, we go up with the concept of horizontal scaling. Here in this case, you have a computer with 1 microprocessor and 1 GB of RAM. If the load increases, instead of adding this microprocessor and RAM memory to this existing computer, you will be adding an additional new computer itself. By the way, you can, as your workload increases, you can go on and add additional computer rather than adding the resources on top of an existing computer. This is called as horizontal scaling. Usually, if you go for a vertical horizontal scaling will be an efficient one in terms of performance has been concerned, but the drawback associated with this, you want to go for increased cost. Since rather than going up with the microprocessor and RAM alone, since you are going up with the new system itself, you need to spend little bit more cost, but in terms of performance, it will be very, very effective one. These are all the advantages of going for this horizontal scaling. Here the process of adding the resources has been termed as scale up, that we already know. The process of releasing the resources has been termed as scale down. So here the process of scaling up and scaling down can be automated using a service. That service is called AutoScaling, associated with AWS. Okay, this is the concept behind this AutoScaling. So with this AutoScaling, so it helps us to ensure that we have a correct number of Amazon EC2 servers to handle the workload. Whenever we have high workload, we should have enough servers to handle the workload. Whenever workload is less, then those additional servers, if it is 100 less, need to be released. Those things can be automated using this AutoScaling. Okay, so in this AutoScaling, you will be discussing about the following components. One is AutoScaling group. These are all the core 3 components associated with this AutoScaling. One is group. First component is group. The second one, launch configuration. You want to create a launch configuration. Let me discuss what these components are. And third, you want to specify a plan for scaling. If you want to scale up or scale down, you want to specify scaling plan. What is group? Here, if you are launching this EC2 instance, this EC2 instance need to be launched in a group. That group is called as AutoScaling group. Okay, which is nothing but the AutoScaling group is nothing but a logical unit of your AutoScaling member. It is a logical unit. So here the group will be formed. The AutoScaling group contains the following information. Here we specify how many number of minimum instance and how many number of maximum instance that we need to make with this group. Okay, based upon that, the group will scale or scale up or scale down according to minimum. Minimum, we should have 2 instances, and maximum, it is your choice. So here, while specifying this minimum and maximum to this group, what happens here in this, according to this workload that you have specified, the scaling will take place. So here in terms of scaling has been concerned, there are 3 types of scaling. One is manual scaling. You will scale. The administrator need to scale. Manual scaling. Second one is automatic scaling. In this automatic scaling only, you will be using this CloudWatch matrices to decide whether it need to scale up or scale down. We are deciding based upon this CloudWatch matrices, and the CloudWatch matrices will monitor the instance that you have launched in the auto scaling group, and based upon certain conditions, the action will be initiated. We call this action as a CloudWatch alarm. We will discuss this CloudWatch. At that time, we will know what is alarm, how to define an alarm, what are all the matrices that we are going to use for monitoring. There are different types of matrices associated with the EC2, S3, ELB, like we have different matrices. We will have a discussion of those matrices. Now, automatic scaling involves the utilization of CloudWatch matrices. Then there is another type of scaling called a scheduled scaling. Okay, a scheduled scaling. Here, based upon time, you want to schedule the scale. Whether scale up or scale down need to be done is based upon the scaling. These 2 scaling, manual and auto scaling, depends upon the matrices. So based upon, for example, the matrices that we can make use of it, either CPU utilization is one matrix, or the network traffic that is coming in, network in, the amount of data that is coming to the server can be treated as another matrices. Okay, whereas in case of a scheduled scaling, based upon this time, we will instruct whether to add additional CPU or to remove CPU. For example, here, let me take a banking server. In this banking server, you are aware that the bank activity starts at 10 a.m. So at 10 a.m., being only few people will come, you can schedule 1 microprocessor and 1 GB of RAM. And after 11, it will be busy. Up to 2 p.m., it will be busy. At that time, to tackle the load, you can instruct 2 microprocessor and 3 GB of RAM. So from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., being it is a lunch time, here no activity will take place. Therefore, to maintain the server, 1 microprocessor and 1 GB of RAM. Then after 3 p.m., 3 to 5 p.m., you can make it with 1 microprocessor and 2 GB of RAM. By the way, based upon this time, you can schedule the resources. Whether you need 1 or 2, you can schedule the resources. And automatically here, according to this resource scheduler, based upon the time, your instance will be added with additional resources, so on, so on. Under which circumstance you need to go for this scheduled scaling, if and only if you are aware at what time you need this much of resources, in that case only you need to go for scheduled scaling. If you doesn't know whether you will be having a load or not at that time, based upon this current scenario, if you want to take a decision, then you need to go for either a manual scaling or automated scaling. The difference between a manual and automated scaling is here you need a user intervention. The administrator need to intervene. User intervention is needed if you go for manual scaling. This is the activity traditionally that we follow. You will be monitoring through the matrices. Based upon that, you will go for scaling. Whereas automated, if you configure this auto scaling, automatically it will be. Is it possible to club schedulers and automatic scaling? What is the necessity to club this thing? you can have multiple scaling policies. Okay, you can club scaling policies, not automatic at this time. If assume that you have mentioned at 11 to 2 p.m., make it with 2 microprocessor and 2 3 GB of RAM. Suddenly, if there is a burst of traffic, in this sense, you can also include this automatic scaling clubbed with the scheduled scaling. If that is the case, you can't make use of this console. Here, you want to make use of APIs to automate this task. To club this task, you need to write your own code. Here comes the role of developer. Okay, now you know what is group. It is nothing but all the EC2 instances that forms the part of auto scaling will be under the group. The group you need to specify the minimum value and the maximum value. The minimum and maximum refers to the number of EC2 instances that you can launch in the group. The second, which computer that it need to be launched. In this sense, here, what is how many number of microprocessor? What is the RAM capacity? What is the hard disk capacity? Which key that you need to use, the public key to authenticate you, which AMI that you need to choose. All other things need to be specified. If you want to launch a computer into this auto scaling, you want to specify the opposite information for a computer. Where you specify all those things. You can specify all those things in your launch configuration. Launch configuration, either you can go up with the public AMI, or if you want, for example, in our example, if you want to launch a web server, imagine a web server. What we did in our web server, we take a Ubuntu instance and we configure this web server on top of it. What are all the HTTP has been configured, and then we have created a HTML index.html page under which it displays the static content. Okay. So imagine you have a own web server that is launched in your auto scaling. Okay. So if load increases, what you need, you want to include uninstall web server too in your auto scaling group. So here in this case, you need to specify the AMI. So what you can do, if you specify a public AMI, you will be having only operating system. So here you need to configure web server. In this case, in our example, we have configured HTTP and we need to create the index.html. We need to start all the services. In this sense, what you can do, you can create an instance using this public AMI Ubuntu and configure all these on top of it, and you can create a private AMI from this. A private AMI can be created. Then you, while launching a new instance into this auto scaling group, here what you can specify in your launch configuration, you can specify this private AMI. Therefore, when an instance is launched by using this private AMI, that instance will be pre-configured with web server and all the associated things. So this is the way by which you can make use of a private AMI. I think so we have already discussed how to create a private AMI. If not, we can have discussion now. Okay, so either you can make use of a public AMI, or if you want, according to this particular scenario, so there is a web server. Imagine you launched a Hadoop cluster. You are having a Hadoop, a 3-node cluster. Okay, if you your load increases, if you want to add additional machine, in this case, what you can do, you want to do a lot of process for a Hadoop machine. So this Hadoop can be configured as a private AMI, and if you specify that AMI, the instance that is launched will contain Hadoop pre-configured. So these are all the ways where we can make use of a private AMI to launch a pre-configured instance. We will discuss all those things in live. Now, our intention of this particular thing, you want to aware what is launch configuration, what information is present in the launch configuration. That's all. Okay. Now, these are all the 3 core key components. Okay, you know the auto scaling groups. So, focus on. Second thing, launch configuration, which specifies the configuration of the computer that we are going to launch. And third one, the scaling plan. Let me first start with a normal scaling plan. Okay, so let me first in this example, what I am going to specify here is, in our use case, I am going to create a auto scaling group. In that group, I am going to specify you a minimum number of instances need to be one, and maximum instance it is anything. And I am going to specify a launch configuration using a public AMI, and I am going to do the practice. This is what that we are going to do now. Okay. So, what are all the components that we have discussed now? Then, how you can access this auto scale? You can access the auto scaling either by using a console or by using a CLI mode as an administrator. So, here, if you are looking for a developer, you can make use of APIs. Our discussion will be on console first, and laterly it will be on CLI, command line interface. Okay, these are all the things that is associated. What are all the advantages of going for this auto scale? We have a lot of advantages. The major advantages associated with auto scaling is first one, fault tolerance. You know what is fault tolerance? So here, assume you are having two instances. Okay, so here the auto scaling, what it can do, it can check the instance state, whether the instance is healthy or unhealthy. Similar to our discussion on previous ELB, it also checks healthy instance and unhealthy instance. So if the auto scaling detects when an instance is unhealthy, what it will do? It will simply terminate that instance. Okay. Then ELB will also do the same thing. ELB, what it will do, if we have two instances, it will check whether healthy or unhealthy. If it found that if the instance is unhealthy, what it will do? It won't terminate. It will stop the traffic to the instance. Yesterday we have discussed about that. It will simply stop the traffic sending to the instance. Whereas this auto scaling, it will simply terminate the unhealthy instance and it will replace the instance with a new healthy instance. You please make a note of this thing. In terms of this fault tolerance, what is the difference between auto scaling and elastic load balancer is, if elastic load balancer encounters an unhealthy instance, it won't do anything, it won't terminate, it will simply block the traffic that is forwarded to the instance. Then here the auto scaling will terminate the instance and it will launch a new instance to replace it. Please make a note. That is the first difference. Okay, that is fault tolerance. The second, better availability. It's option 2. Better high availability or better availability. According to your workload, you can have that the n number of instances. Okay, you can auto scaling will ensure us that the application that is run will have the needed amount of resources to handle the current workload. What is the current workload? Accordingly, the instances will be here. Okay, if you have an increased workload, you have an increased number of instances, more number of instances. If your workload is less, you can cope up with the minimum instance. That is, according to your workload, you can go up with the needed infrastructure. That is termed as the best availability. By the way of making use of the instance in a better way, you can achieve a great cost efficiency. That is the third advantage, highly cost efficient. So you can make the auto scaling to increase or decrease the instance dynamically based upon the workload. What is the direct influence? You can save the amount. So if you need only 2 instances, you can have only 2 instances. If you want more, such as 5 instances, you can go and add the instances. If you are traffic down and if you need only 1 instance, you can release those unwanted instances. How those things can be done? By clubbing this auto scaling with the CloudWatch, you can able to do all the opposite things. Based upon the workload, you can make the instance to scale up or scale down, either by using CloudWatch matrices. If you use CloudWatch matrices, we can go up with dynamic scaling. Else, you can make scheduled scaling based upon time interval. Or else, You can go up with monitoring the logs, and you can make a manual scaling. By the way of making use of anyone scaling, you can have a perfect workload based resources in your auto scaling group. By the way, you can able to save your money to a great extent. So these are all some of the advantages, benefits of going for this auto scaling. Please make a note of these benefits. Okay. Next thing, the state of the instance. When you add an instance, okay, when you detach the instance, what happens here in this case? When you here there is an instance, only one instance in auto scaling. If you add a new instance, when it will reflect? When you add an instance, minimum it took 5 minutes. That is 300 seconds it will need to reflect this adding or removal. Okay, either if you add or if you remove the instance in your log, there will be a history tag. You will can able to view this history log. What is happening in this auto scaling loop? Minimum it took 300 seconds. This is the interview question. Just make a note of it. Okay, what state the instance will be? Initially, if you add a new instance, okay, what happened here in this case is the instance will be starting in the pending state. When you look into this log, it will be in the pending state. So after that, what happens here is the instance moves from pending state to pending wait state. These are all life cycle states. From pending wait states, what happened here is pending processes, proceed state. It will be in this pending proceed state. And everything is perfect. Okay, when the instance is ready, now it will be in service state. So if it is in service, then it shows that that instance is a healthy instance. Please make a note. From pending, pending waits, pending proceed, and in service. These are all the way the states when you add a new instance. Please make a note of this thing. The reverse, when you remove an instance, first the instance will be in a terminating state. When you remove the instance, it will be in a terminating state. So the instance will be detached from the auto scaling group. Now it is in terminated state. After that, it will move from terminating wait state. Now, after that, it moves to termination proceed state. And finally, if it is completely terminated, now it comes to terminated state. You note the difference, terminating and terminated. So this is the state of removal instance. This is the state when you add a new instance. Please make a note. So by looking into that, you can able to identify whether the instance got terminated or it is in the process of terminating. All the above said activity will need 300 seconds to reflect in your log. Okay. If service unable to bringing down the server, so auto scaling will take care of all those things. How to bring down will be taken care by auto scaling. Let me discuss. Now we are going to discuss about the limits, auto scaling limits. Okay, how many launch configuration that you have? If you have a single account, Amazon account, if you have a single Amazon account, these are all the limits associated with auto scaling. At the maximum, you can have 100 launch configuration under a single account per region. This is per region. For example, if you are working with this Mumbai region, in this auto scaling, you can have at the maximum 100 different launch configurations. And you can have auto scaling, number of auto scaling groups, all are inter-requested. At the maximum 20 groups per region. So you want to specify some scaling policies. And how many policies? It can be either a scaling policy, can be a dynamic policy, or it can be a manual, or it can be a scheduled policy, whatever may be. The maximum number of policy that is limited is 50 policies alone can be specified. Totally, you can have a 50 scaling policies. If you want to send a notification for auto scaling group, per group, how many notifications that you can set? You can set at the maximum of SNS notification, maximum 10 notification per group. So these are all some of the limitations associated. You can have 100 launch configuration, 20 groups. If you want to send some notification, you can set at the maximum of 10 notification per group, and you can have at the maximum 50 scaling policies. Based upon the scaling policy, you will initiate certain action. Either you can go up adding the server, removing the server, or instructing to do something. Okay, the actions can be at the maximum 125 actions per auto scaling group. Please make a note. You can specify at the maximum of 125 actions per scaling group. These are all some of the limitations. Okay, here if you want to exceed, you want a maximum 30 auto scaling groups instance. Yes, you want to write with to Amazon, indicating the appropriate reason. Amazon will give you a special permission to launch that. Everything is possible. Okay, this is the default limitation. Now, what we are going to do? Step one, first thing, we are going to create a auto scaling group with the following sequence of action. For auto scaling group, first you want to create a launch configuration, LC, which specifies the microprocessor, RAM memory, hard disk size, and type of and after that you will specify the AMI. It will specify the security group. It will specify the keys. What are all the things that you need to specify by launching a EC2 instance can be specified in the launch configuration. You want to first create a launch configuration. Second, you want to create a auto scaling group. You want to specify the minimum number of instances and the maximum number of instances. And once you create, you can verify whether all the instances, for example, if you have specified minimum 2, then your auto scaling group should contain minimum 2 instances, and those 2 instances need to be in the healthy state. You can verify the opposite things. When the instance was found to be in healthy state, if you found the status of instance is active, okay, now it is recorded as in service. Okay, any active instance with a healthy state now is recorded as in service. If the instance is in service, that indicates that it is a healthy instance. These are all the set of tasks that we are going to perform now. Now let me directly move on to our laboratory. Okay, let me connect to this Amazon Web Service and do the lab on top of it. now I got connected to North Virginia. Now let me choose this auto scaling, which is under this AC2. The auto scaling will be under AC2. First, go to this launch configuration. Step 1, what we need to do? You want to create a launch configuration. That is step 1. Okay, create launch configuration. So here, these are all the things that you need to do. Okay, the first process in creating this group is you want to specify this launch configuration. Click on step 1, launch configuration. Step 2, create auto scaling group. Whenever the number of instances that is specified is need to be maintained, then we need to specify a policy. So according to the policy, the number of instances will be maintained. Okay. Now let me click on create launch configuration. So let me choose any AM. Let me choose Ubuntu default. Then it will choose it is a micro. Let I choose the name of launch configuration. Let me make it as a Thiru. The name of launch configuration. Thiru 6. Okay. Here I can go for purchasing a spot instance also. If I go for a higher end instance, I can go for purchasing a spot instance. I can also specify a IAM role. So based upon that role, the user will have access privileges to this auto scaling group. If you want to enable CloudWatch, you can enable CloudWatch. We will do all sort of things laterly once our CloudWatch has been over. As of now, there is no such reverse instance, reserved instance. Sadik, that is reserved instance. I will let you know what is the difference once this is over. Okay, the difference between the spot instance and reserved instance is spot instance is similar to bidding the instance. Okay, you have in terms of instance has been concerned, there are 4 types of instance in Amazon. One is on demand instance. The second one is reserved instance. Third one is dedicated instance. And fourth one is spot instance. Out of which, in terms of cost, the least cost will be only for spot instance. Okay, the highest cost will be on demand instance. What is a spot instance? You have this. Imagine you have this data center, US West data center, under which you can able to launch 1 lakh of EC2 instance. Currently, it is assumed that you have only 50,000 EC2 instance has been launched, and you have a space left for launching additional 50,000 instances. Amazon may have a price, rupees 1 rupee per hour for this launch in US West for a particular EC2 instance with 1 processor and 2 GB of RAM. So remaining, you can able to launch 50,000 instance. In this case, what you can do, you can bid a price. You can bid. So instead of 1 rupees, I can pay 75 paise. Can you able to give me an instance for 1 hour? What Amazon will do? So being this instance is ideal here, it will give you for the price as requested by you, 75 paise per hour. Let me take a scenario. You are going from Madurai to Chennai. Okay, what will be the bus tariff? If you go for a sleeper, AC sleeper bus, it will be around 1,000 rupees. Okay, if you are leaving Chennai to Madurai on your weekdays, on Friday, the bus tariff will be a fixed tariff 1,000 rupees. And for on a return journey on Sunday, it will be 1,000 rupees. Imagine you are traveling from Madurai to Chennai on Wednesday or Thursday, and the bus tariff, whether it is the same. So here the bus at the maximum it can able to accommodate 40 passengers, but on a Wednesday and Friday, for example, if they have only 30 passengers, then the bus will be left with 10 free seats. In this case, in Madutavani bus stand, they will ask you whether you are going for Chennai. In this sense, if you say I am having only 800 rupees, can you take me? then they will take you. They won't demand you the fixed price of 1,000 also, because else they will left out with the 10 free seats, and to fill the seat they will get the price that you can offer. You can say that I am having only 750 rupees. We are two passengers. Can we take us? Yes, they can take us. Also, because to accommodate the free seat, you can make a bid for that seat. Similarly, in Amazon also there is an option. If the data center is free, then if they have more ideal resources, then you can get a spot. You can specify a price, or Amazon will specify a price. This is the minimum bid. Like you are bidding, okay, this is the minimum bid. You can, if you want, you can get these resources like things. That is the way by which you can get the spot instance. Reserved instance means the instance will be reserved. Dedicated and reserved are both are one and same. The instance will be reserved. Similar to, okay, if you want to launch your instance, you are launching your web server. Each and every time, if you want to launch your web server at the Singapore data center instance, you want to get the reserved instance. You want to reserve the instance minimum of 1 year or 3 years or 5 years period. Whenever you launch, the instance will be launched in the specific data center. If it is on demand, you can't able to ensure this thing. So you specify a first option in Singapore. If the Singapore data center is not free, then it will launch in the US. Okay, that is on demand. Whereas if your client is in Singapore only, and if you launch your web server in Singapore, then your client can have a very good efficiency in accessing the web server. If that is the case, each and every time if you want to make a launch in Singapore data center, you want to get a reserved instance. You need to get a reserved instance minimum period of 1 year, 3 year, and 5 years, so on, so on. Okay, this is the way by which your reserved instance differs from on demand. And that if you want to get the reserved instance, you need to go up with some initial payment. You want to pay some initial payment, but the number of hours that you are using, for that the payment will be less compared to that of on demand. Okay, a spot instance is similar to a on demand instance, but you can fix the price for the spot instance. If you get the spot instance for 1 hour, after 1 hour you want to send a bid again. Now you got it for 75 paise. Now somebody, if they send a bid for 80 paise, now after 1 hour it will be terminated for you. If you want to get the bid, you want to get a bid for 81 paise. That is the way by which you can get a spot instance. நீங்க ஏலம் எடுக்கிற மாதிரி ஸ்பாட் இன்ஸ்டன்ஸ்ங்கிறது நீங்க ஏலத்துல எடுக்கிற மாதிரி. ஓகே, நீங்க எவ்வளவுக்கு எவ்வளவு பிரைஸ் கம்மியா இருக்கோ அவ்வளவுக்கு அவ்வளவு நீங்க வந்து நம்ம என்ன பண்ணிக்கலாம், நம்ம யாரு பிரைஸ் அதிகமா கேட்கறாங்களோ அவங்களுக்கு கொடுத்துருவோம். எஸ் ஆதிக், this is the difference between spot and on demand. Dedicated host instance, your resources will be dedicated. For example, here in your this difference between reserved and dedicated is, this is your data center. Okay, you have your server, a physical server. You may have n number of physical servers. Physical server 1, physical server 2, up to 10 physical servers. Imagine your company is going to take 1,000 instances for a period of 1 year. Okay, so here if it is fixed for a period of 1 year and you want only all those 1,000 instances need to be launched on one particular physical server. In this sense, what you need to do, you need to go for this dedicated instance. All your instance, whenever you need, will be launched only on physical server 1, not on all the remaining physical servers. Here, the physical server will be dedicated to you for launching your computer. Okay, for that you need to pay a little bit more. Whereas if it is a reserved instance, you can launch this 1,000 instance on any one of the physical server according to its availability. If you got a dedicated account, then dedicated instance, the server will be dedicated for your company. In this case, let me make server 1 is dedicated for company XYZ. Whenever you try to launch the instance will be launched only on server 1. Others can't be able to access the server 1. This is the way by which a dedicated and reserved differs by. உங்களை தவிர வேற யாருக்கும் அந்த சர்வர் அசைன் பண்ணியிருக்க மாட்டாங்க. உங்களுக்காக டெடிகேட் பண்ணதுக்குனால உங்க காஸ்ட் வந்து கொஞ்சம் கூட இருக்கும். ஒரு செக்யூரிட்டி ரிலேட்டடா உங்களுக்கு ஏதாச்சும் டவுட் இருக்கு, எப்பயுமே உங்களோட பெர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் எப்பயுமே பெட்டரா இருக்கணும். சர்வரோட ஃபுல் கெப்பாசிட்டியும் இஃப் யூ வாண்ட் டு மேக் யூஸ் ஆஃப் இட் அப்படின்னா யூ நீட் டு கோ ஃபார் திஸ் டெடிகேட்டட் இன்ஸ்டன்ஸ். ஓகே, these are all differences associated with a spot instance, dedicated instance and so on. இதே ரிசர்வ்ட் இன்ஸ்டன்ஸ், ரிசர்வ்ட் இன்ஸ்டன்ஸ்னா
சார் டெடிகேட்,
எஸ்
சார் டெடிகேட்டட் இன்ஸ்டன்ஸ்னா அப்ப இன் கேஸ் அந்த
okay, check. These are all the statistics associated with this auto-scaling. You can find all the details. You can, if you click on this activity history, you can find all this. Now, initially we have launched one EC2 instance. We have terminated the instance. Termination successful. Once it is terminated, automatically it launches a new instance. Once a new instance launches successfully, you can find the instance state becomes from an unhealthy state to healthy state. Okay, everything will be done automatically. If you have a scheduled notification, notification will be given to you. Okay, this instance is terminated because it is unhealthy. Now it is now replaced with a healthy instance like thing. For that, to make a scaling, you can invoke this monitoring. This auto scaling will monitor default here. By default, you have matrices collected 5 seconds once. You can find this maximum number of matrices that can be assigned is 10. Here you can invoke a monitoring, and then the monitoring will collect matrices accordingly. Action can be initiated. This is the way by which you can, if you want, at any time your account will be running with one instance. To overcome from that, what you need to do? You want to remove this auto scaling group and the launch configuration. Okay, how to remove auto scaling group? Click on the group, click on action, delete the group. Yes, that's all. Now, and once you delete the group, automatically your instance will also be terminated. Click launch configuration. You can go to action, delete launch configuration. Else it will be built. Now automatically, once you delete this, you can find the instance got terminating. Automatically your instance got terminating. You no need to go and stop the instance. It will do automatically based upon the policy that you have specified in AutoScaling.